Anna Mitchell wakes up in the soft glow of early morning light filtering through the bedroom window. The warmth of her husband's body beside her is familiar, comforting. She stretches slightly, feeling the weight of his arm draped across her waist. Everything seems normal. But then a strange feeling washes over her. Something isn't right. The scent is wrong. David always smells like cedarwood and fresh linen, his signature cologne lingering on his skin. But today there's something different, a subtle but unmistakable unfamiliarity. A scent she can't place. Her heart beats a little faster, but she pushes the thought aside. Maybe she's just imagining things. She shifts in bed, turning toward him. His eyes are still closed, his breathing steady. But as she watches, her unease grows. His hair looks slightly different, the way it falls against his forehead. Even his jawline seems sharper. She blinks, shaking off the thought. It's ridiculous. It's David. Of course it's David. Still, the nagging feeling persists. Slowly, she slides out of bed, careful not to wake him. She moves to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face, trying to shake off the paranoia creeping in. When she looks at herself in the mirror, she tries to laugh at herself. You're being crazy, Anna. It's your husband. Stop overthinking. But as she steps back into the bedroom, something makes her freeze in place. The man in bed is awake now, sitting up slightly, watching her. His expression is soft, his lips curling into a sleepy smile. "Morning, babe," he says. Anna's stomach twists. The voice, it's his voice, but there's something about the way he said it. The tone feels off just a fraction. Like someone pretending to be David. Her heart pounds. She forces a smile, trying to mask her growing anxiety. "Morning," she replies carefully. The man tilts his head slightly. "You okay?" Anna hesitates, swallowing hard. "Yeah, just tired." His gaze lingers on her, almost studying her reaction. And that's when she realizes, his eyes. They're the same color, the same deep brown she's looked into for years. But there's something in them that feels unfamiliar. A coldness she doesn't recognize. She forces herself to breathe, turning away to grab her phone. She needs to calm down. She needs to think. But as she glances at the screen, her blood runs cold. A message from David. "Hey babe, I'm landing in an hour. Can't wait to see you." The phone slips from her hands, hitting the floor with a soft thud. Her breath catches in her throat. If David is on a plane, then who is in her bed? If you're already hooked on this story and want to uncover more chilling twists and turns, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We dive deep into some of the most shocking true crime cases, exploring the details others miss. Don't forget to like this video and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Now let's get back to the story, because this is just the beginning. The terrifying realization that Anna Mitchell had just experienced, that the man lying next to her was not her husband, was only the beginning of a nightmare she could never have imagined. But to truly understand how she found herself in this horrifying situation, we need to take a step back and meet the key players in this twisted story. Anna had always been someone who believed in love, trust, and the foundation of a solid marriage. Growing up in a close-knit family, she had dreamed of one day having a love story as steady and unwavering as her parents. When she met David Mitchell in her early 20s, she thought she had found exactly that. Anna was the kind of person who saw the best in people. She was warm, kind-hearted, and fiercely loyal. As an elementary school teacher, she had a natural instinct to nurture, to protect, and to believe in those she loved. So when David proposed after 5 years of dating, she didn't hesitate. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but whose was? David worked long hours as an architect, often traveling for projects. There were nights when she wished he was home more, but she never doubted his love for her. He was the man she had built a life with, the one she trusted more than anyone in the world. That's what made the betrayal, the deception, so utterly devastating. She had no reason to suspect anything was wrong, until now. David Mitchell was a man who had built his success from the ground up. Coming from a middle-class background, he had always been determined to make something of himself. His passion for architecture led him to long hours, endless deadlines, and frequent business trips. But no matter how busy he was, he always made time for Anna. He loved her. She was his anchor, his home. When they got married, he promised her a future, a family, stability, and a lifetime of love. What David never talked about, however, was his brother. Ryan Mitchell was the ghost of the Mitchell family. Unlike David, Ryan had always been the black sheep, the rebellious twin, the troublemaker, the one who never quite fit into the mold of a respectable life. He and David had once been close, but something changed when they reached their 20s. A dark rift formed between them. Ryan disappeared. For years there were no calls, no visits, nothing. David never spoke about him, and eventually Anna stopped asking. As far as she knew, Ryan was just a part of David's past, a painful chapter he had chosen to leave behind. But now, that past had come crashing back into their lives in the most horrifying way possible. When Anna finally realized something was terribly wrong, she turned to the police. That's where Detective Sarah Lawson came in. Detective Lawson was not new to strange cases, but even she found this one unsettling. A woman waking up next to a man who looked like her husband, but wasn't? It sounded like something out of a psychological thriller. But as she dug deeper, she realized this was no ordinary case of mistaken identity. She had been in law enforcement for over 2 decades. She had seen criminals lie, cheat, and manipulate their way through life. But there was something about Ryan Mitchell, something sinister, something calculated. He hadn't just slipped into his brother's life by accident. This had been planned. Anna had always been able to turn to Erica Hayes, her best friend since college, for support. Erica was the no-nonsense, tell-it-like-it-is type of friend. When Anna first confided in her about her uneasy feeling that something was off about David, Erica didn't dismiss it. "Anna," she had said, her voice low over the phone, "you know your husband. If something doesn't feel right, you can't ignore that." At first, Erica thought maybe Anna was just stressed, maybe feeling a bit neglected because of David's work schedule. But when Anna started describing the strange little differences, his handwriting looking slightly off, the way he suddenly had a different favorite coffee order, even his touch feeling different, Erica's instincts kicked in. "Babe," she had said, "you need to be careful. What if this isn't just in your head?" Anna wanted to believe she was overreacting. She wanted to believe that Erica was just feeding into her paranoia. But deep down she knew her best friend was right. Something was wrong. Each of these people, Anna, David, Ryan, Detective Lawson, and Erica, played a crucial role in what was about to unfold. But what none of them knew yet was just how deep the deception went. Ryan had disappeared years ago for a reason. And now he was back. But why? What had he been doing all those years? And more importantly, how long had he been planning to take his brother's place? If you're finding yourself completely drawn into this chilling case, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We break down some of the most shocking and disturbing true crime cases, diving deep into every twist and turn. Don't forget to hit the like button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next, because trust me, things are only going to get darker from here. Let's continue. Anna Mitchell had always believed that marriage had its natural ups and downs. After years together, she and David had settled into a routine, familiar, comfortable, and predictable. He loved her, she had no doubt about that. But the spark that once burned so brightly between them had dimmed over time, buried beneath work deadlines, responsibilities, and the simple reality of life. Then suddenly, everything changed. It started gradually. David became more attentive. He brought home flowers, something he hadn't done in years. He lingered in conversations with her, asking about her day with an intensity she hadn't seen since they were dating. He started touching her more, pulling her into his arms at random moments, whispering sweet things in her ear like he used to when they were younger. At first, Anna welcomed it. She told Erica about it over coffee one morning. "I don't know what's gotten into him," she had said, stirring her latte with a small smile. "But it's like he's in love with me all over again." Erica had raised an eyebrow, smirking. "And you're complaining?" "No. Not at all," Anna laughed. It's different, you know? Like almost overnight he changed." Erica had shrugged. "Maybe he finally realized what he has and doesn't want to lose you." That explanation had been enough for Anna at the time. But soon the little things started gnawing at her. It was one night at dinner when Anna first noticed something truly off. She had made David's favorite meal, chicken parmesan with extra garlic bread. It had always been his go-to comfort food. But that night, as they sat at the table, she watched as he hesitated before taking a bite. "What's wrong?" she asked. He smiled too quickly. "Nothing. I don't really eat this much garlic anymore." Anna frowned. "Since when?" He laughed, shaking his head. "I don't know. Just a change, I guess." That was the first crack. Then there was his handwriting. One afternoon she found a note he had left on the counter. "Gone to the gym. Be back soon. Love you." It was his handwriting, sort of. It was close enough that it wouldn't have immediately raised suspicion, but something about the way the letters curled, the way the loops were slightly different, made her stomach twist. And then there was the way he kissed her. It was passionate, almost desperate, but something in it felt new. As if he was learning her body, studying her reactions rather than moving with the ease of someone who had loved her for years. At first, she had convinced herself she was imagining things. People change, right? Maybe he was just making an effort and she was overanalyzing it. But then one night it happened. The moment that shattered her fragile sense of security. They were in bed, wrapped in sheets, David's arm lazily draped over her waist. He had been more affectionate than ever, pulling her close, whispering in her ear. That's when he said it. "You're even more beautiful than I remembered." Anna's breath hitched. She turned her head slightly to look at him. "What do you mean?" David's face remained relaxed, his fingers tracing slow circles on her arm. "I don't know. I guess I just forgot how soft your skin is." Her heart pounded. She forced herself to keep her voice light. "Forgot." He hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough for dread to creep into her chest. She shifted away from him, sitting up slightly. Her mind was racing. This was her husband, the man she had spent nearly a decade with. The man who knew her inside and out. So why did it feel like he was studying her, like he was rediscovering her in a way that didn't make sense? A sickening thought crossed her mind. What if he wasn't remembering? What if he was learning? What if this wasn't David? Anna had spent the last few weeks drowning in doubt. The inconsistencies in David's behavior, the small changes in his habits, the way he felt like someone she knew but not quite the man she had married, it had all built into an unease she couldn't shake. And then one night she found proof. She hadn't intended to go looking for anything. It was just another sleepless night, another evening spent tossing and turning while the man next to her, David, slept peacefully, his breath slow and steady. She crept out of bed and wandered into the attic, searching for distraction. That's when she saw it, a dusty old family photo album tucked away in a storage box. A pang of nostalgia hit her as she flipped through the pages, smiling at the younger versions of David and his family. There he was, her husband, standing next to his identical twin brother, Ryan. Anna had always found it eerie how alike they had looked as children. But David had told her over and over again, "Ryan is gone. We haven't spoken in years." As she traced her fingers over the faded pictures, her eyes landed on something she had never noticed before. Ryan had a scar on his jaw. A thin, distinct line running just below his ear. Her blood ran cold. She felt her hands tremble as she snapped the album shut. She had seen that scar before. The man sleeping in her bed had the same scar. A wave of nausea hit her as she clutched the album to her chest, her mind racing. She thought back to the subtle changes, the food preferences, the way he kissed, the handwriting that wasn't quite right. It all suddenly made sense in the most horrifying way. This wasn't David. Heart pounding, Anna forced herself to walk back into the bedroom. She stood over the man she had believed was her husband, staring at his sleeping form. "David," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He stirred but didn't wake. She swallowed hard. "David." Slowly he opened his eyes, blinking up at her. "Oh?" She tightened her grip on the photo album. "Tell me about Ryan." A flicker of something passed over his face. It was quick, so quick that if she hadn't been watching closely she would have missed it. But it was there. A flash of panic. "What?" he mumbled, sitting up. "Your brother." Her voice wavered, but she kept going. "Tell me about him." He exhaled, rubbing his eyes. "Anna, why are we talking about this at?" She flipped the album open, shoving the picture toward him. "You have his scar." Silence. For a long moment he didn't move, didn't react. He just sat there staring at the picture. Then slowly he looked up at her and smiled. "You're tired," he said, his voice smooth, almost amused. "You're imagining things." Anna took a shaky step back. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Gaslight me," she hissed. "I know what I saw. I know you're not." He reached for her hand, his expression calm, reassuring. "Baby, listen to yourself. You're acting paranoid." Anna yanked her hand away. Her chest was heaving, her head spinning. She needed to get out. She stumbled out of the bedroom, her hands shaking as she grabbed her phone. There was only one way to prove it. She scrolled through her contacts, pressing David's number with trembling fingers. The phone rang once, twice, and then a familiar voice picked up. "Hey babe, everything okay?" Anna felt the air leave her lungs. David's voice. David's real voice. Her hands gripped the phone so tightly it hurt. "Where are you?" she whispered. There was a pause on the other end. "What do you mean? I'm out of town, remember? I told you I had to fly out for the project in Chicago." Anna's heart stopped. Her knees nearly buckled as she turned her head toward the bedroom. The man claiming to be her husband was standing in the doorway now, watching her. Smiling. She had been sleeping next to a stranger. A man who wasn't her husband. If you're as shocked as we are, don't forget to subscribe for more true crime breakdowns. The twists in this story are just beginning, and trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Hit the like button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Now let's continue. Anna's hands trembled as she gripped the cup of coffee in front of her. The police station was cold, sterile, and unfamiliar, but she didn't care. She just needed someone, anyone, to believe her. Across the table sat Detective Sarah Lawson, her sharp eyes scanning the notes in front of her. She was seasoned, no stranger to cases that didn't quite add up. But even this was something new. Anna had barely slept. Her mind replayed the moment over and over, David's voice on the phone, the man standing in her bedroom doorway, smiling as if he hadn't just shattered her reality. "This is insane," Anna muttered, running a hand through her hair. "I know what I saw. That man in my house, the one I've been sleeping next to, he's not my husband." Detective Lawson leaned forward, her voice calm. "Anna, I believe that you believe something is wrong. But we need evidence before we can act." Anna's breath hitched. There has to be something. Records, fingerprints, something." Lawson exchanged a glance with another officer before sighing. "Let's start at the beginning. Tell me everything you know about Ryan Mitchell." Anna hesitated. She had heard about Ryan before, of course. David had mentioned him in passing, but always with a finality, as if the subject wasn't open for discussion. "They were twins," she started. "Identical. But Ryan, he left a long time ago. David never told me much, just that there was a fight and Ryan disappeared after that." Lawson nodded. "Do you know what they fought about?" Anna shook her head. "No. David never gave me details. Just that it was bad and that he hadn't spoken to Ryan since." The detective flipped through a file, her expression tightening. "Ryan Mitchell has been missing for nearly a decade. No credit activity, no official records, no confirmed sightings. If he's resurfaced now, this would be his first real trace in years." Anna's stomach twisted. A decade? And now, suddenly he was here, in her home, in her bed, pretending to be her husband? "Is it possible he's been watching you?" Lawson asked. Anna swallowed. The thought made her nauseous. A uniformed officer entered the room, handing Lawson a tablet. "We pulled some security footage from the neighborhood," he said grimly. "You're going to want to see this." Lawson pressed play. The footage was grainy, taken from a street camera near Anna's house. But the longer Anna watched, the more her skin prickled with dread. A shadowy figure lurked near the house. Not once. Not twice. For months. Always in the background. Watching. Never getting too close, but never leaving. The figure's posture, the way he moved, it was all disturbingly familiar. Anna clapped a hand over her mouth. It was him. Ryan had been watching her for months, waiting. Her blood turned to ice. "We've already checked the system for any trace of Ryan Mitchell," Lawson continued. "No current address, no financial records, no online presence. It's like he dropped off the face of the earth after that family fallout." Anna shook her head. "He's not gone. He's here. He's in my house, pretending to be my husband." Lawson tapped her fingers against the table. "If he's impersonating David, then where's the real David?" Silence hung heavy in the room. The realization hit Anna like a freight train. Where was her real husband? As Anna sat in the police station, reeling from the horrifying truth, Detective Lawson pressed on. "If this really is Ryan, then the question is why," she said. "Why come back now? Why impersonate his brother?" The answer, as it turned out, was even more disturbing than Anna had imagined. Ryan had always lived in David's shadow. Even as kids, David was the responsible one, the one who did well in school, the one their parents were proud of. Ryan? He was the troublemaker, the disappointment. He hated David, Lawson explained, flipping through an old case file. Not just in a brotherly rivalry kind of way. There was real resentment there. He felt like your husband had everything, the career, the house, the perfect wife. Anna shuddered. She had barely known Ryan, but the idea that he had been watching her, studying her, for years made her stomach turn. After the fallout with David, Ryan had vanished. No phone calls, no letters, no signs of life. What no one realized at the time was that Ryan wasn't just gone. He was preparing. He spent years in the shadows, learning everything about his twin. He studied David's mannerisms, the way he spoke, the way he walked. He read every social media post, keeping up with Anna's life from afar. He forged documents, practiced David's signature, even learned his work lingo. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was obsession. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Ryan hadn't just wanted to take something from his brother, he wanted to become him. And for a while it had worked. He had stepped into David's life seamlessly. He He had convinced Anna, at least for a time. He had erased David from the picture. Or so he thought. Because Anna had started to notice. And now, the whole plan was unraveling. Anna's heart pounded as she backed away from Ryan, or the man who had been pretending to be her husband. The dim light from the bedside lamp cast eerie shadows across his face, highlighting the sinister smirk playing on his lips. "You weren't supposed to figure it out," Ryan said, his voice disturbingly calm. Anna's throat tightened. "Where is David?" she demanded, her voice shaking. Ryan stepped forward, and Anna instinctively reached for her phone. She had already called David, barely managing to get out a desperate plea before the line went dead. Ryan sighed. "You don't need to worry about David anymore," he said. "I'm the one who's here now." Anna bolted toward the door, but Ryan grabbed her wrist, his grip like iron. "You're mine now, Anna?" he whispered. She screamed. Miles away, David Mitchell was driving like a madman. Anna's panicked voice still echoed in his head. "David, it's not you, it's not you." He had barely been able to understand her before the line went dead. But it was enough. He knew. Ryan. His twin, his nightmare, had returned. David pushed the accelerator harder, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He should have known Ryan wasn't gone. He should have warned Anna. But now, it might be too late. Back at the house, Anna struggled against Ryan's grip, fear coursing through her veins. "You think you can just leave?" Ryan growled, forcing her back against the wall. "After everything I've done for you? I became him for you." Tears streamed down Anna's face as she tried to push him away. A sound, a door bursting open. "David." He stood in the doorway, chest heaving, eyes locked onto the imposter wearing his life like a mask. Ryan turned, his expression shifting from fury to something else, satisfaction. "Brother," he drawled. "You're home." David didn't hesitate. He lunged at Ryan, tackling him to the floor. The two brothers, once identical in every way, were now locked in a brutal struggle, years of resentment, jealousy, and rage exploding in violent force. Anna scrambled away, gasping for air. A flash of metal, a gun. Ryan had a gun. The struggle intensified. A single gunshot rang out, shattering the air like thunder. Ryan fell. Silence. Anna's breath came in ragged sobs as she stared at the motionless figure on the floor. David stood over him, chest rising and falling heavily. In his shaking hands, the gun. Anna barely registered the flashing red and blue lights outside. The nightmare was finally over. But one question lingered. Did David fire in self-defense? Or was it something more? This case leaves us with chilling questions. Was Ryan's obsession always destined to end in violence? Did David truly act in self-defense? Or had years of betrayal finally pushed him over the edge? The piercing wail of sirens filled the night air as officers swarmed the house. Anna sat on the front steps, wrapped in a blanket, her hands trembling. She couldn't take her eyes off the crime scene, the sight of Ryan's body lifeless on the hardwood floor. David stood beside her, silent. His hands were still shaking. The paramedics pronounced Ryan dead at the scene. The gun was found in his hand, leading to an initial ruling of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but was it really? Detective Sarah Lawson oversaw the investigation, her gut telling her there was more to this case than met the eye. And she was right. As officers searched Ryan's belongings, they discovered something chilling. Multiple fake IDs. A collection of notebooks detailing David's habits, phrases, and even his handwriting. A list of Anna's routines, when she woke up, when she was home alone. Old photos, years worth of clippings, and evidence that Ryan had been watching them long before making his move. This wasn't a crime of opportunity, Lawson murmured, flipping through the files. He planned this for years. Ryan hadn't just wanted to take over David's life. He had studied him. He had prepared for the moment when he would step in and replace him completely. And for a time, it had worked. In the weeks that followed, Anna found herself haunted by what had happened. She had been intimate with a man she thought was her husband. She had shared secrets, laughter, and moments of vulnerability with someone who had been deceiving her all along. The realization shattered her sense of trust, not just in others but in herself. How did I not see it? How did I not know? Her nightmares were relentless. She would wake up, drenched in sweat, convinced that Ryan was still out there, watching, waiting. David, too, struggled with what had happened. His twin was dead. And despite everything Ryan had done, despite the lies, the manipulation, and the danger he posed, there was still a part of David that grieved. After all, Ryan was his brother. But there was something else weighing on him, something unspoken. He couldn't stop thinking about that final moment. The gun. The struggle. The shot that ended it all. Ryan had been holding the weapon, but had he really pulled the trigger? Or had David, in the heat of the moment, done the unthinkable? The police ruled it self-defense. There was no evidence to contradict his story. But deep down David knew. He would carry that question with him forever. Final reflection. How well do we really know the ones we love? Detective Lawson sat at her desk, staring at the case file one last time before closing it for good. This case had shaken her. Not because of the crime itself, she had seen worse, but because of the implications. If someone can fake an entire identity, if someone can slip into another person's life so effortlessly, how well do we really know the ones we love? She let out a slow breath, shutting the folder. Ryan Mitchell had spent years planning this. And the terrifying truth? He had been planning this for far longer than anyone realized. This case is a chilling reminder that sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones hiding the darkest secrets. If this story shocked you, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover some of the most disturbing true crime cases you won't want to miss. And remember, trust your instincts, because sometimes the person sleeping next to you might not be who you think they are.